Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of my Out of the Park Baseball 21 series with the Colorado Rockies, and today we are here at the end of the regular season, September 27th to be exact. So yeah, we're here at the end of our first season of the series, and let's take a look at how we did. So we actually ended up third in the division, and it's really not too surprising. I mean, the Giants, we knew they were going to be bad. The Diamondbacks, maybe that's actually decently surprising that they did not end up being that great, but it looks like they really, their veteran pitching there. Even Zach Gallen didn't do that well. The bullpen also not too great. And then they also had a lot of underwhelming performances, it looks like. Yeah, some of the guys like David Peralta, Cole Calhoun, Manuel Margot. Cole Calhoun, he's been bad for a little bit. But, the guys continuing to be bad. They didn't have the same success that they had last season. Main point there. So, we finished third. And with how kind of the records have lined up, we should have the 10th pick, 9th or 10th pick in the draft this year. So, pretty decent. Of course, I'd like to be up higher, but still, top 10 selection is pretty good. And have no problem with that. And just looking around the league here, especially in the National League, the Dodgers have 115 games. And that pretty much happens every time I play this game. They usually just have a ridiculous amount of wins the first few seasons, and then their dynasty kind of ends up filtering out a little bit. But right at the beginning, they're always usually very dominant. Here, have a very weak Central. Cubs win with only 82 games, and then here and at least shaking out that way. And then just look around the records here. And nothing too surprising there. And so, that's kind of team performance. We'll look quickly at our expected win-loss, see if it's drastically different. And, it looks like we overplayed by 3 games. So we could have been down there with the Diamondbacks Giants. We could have been last in the division. But that really would have only moved us up 2 spots in the draft. So, I'm not too concerned about that, because those are literally the only 2 teams that we would have jumped below. But with team standings kind of taken care of, let's go ahead and look at the team performance individual player-wise, which honestly didn't change too much. So, I'm not sure how long exactly this will take. But catching was actually okay-ish. Elias Diaz, he was the backup. He was decent. Getting on base, a decent clip for a backup catcher, but overall, below league average hitter. Was a replacement level. You can see there by his WAR. Tony Wolters was actually a pretty decent surprise. Of course, he is a pretty good defensive catcher. There, I forget which one is the framing rating. I think that might be catchability, and then catcher position rating is fielding, blocking, that kind of stuff. I think that's kind of how that's chalked up, but he actually had a pretty decent season. The BABIP's probably higher than it will kind of average out for his career, but not a bad season from him. I'll take that kind of offensive production for a guy who is mainly an offensive catcher. I mean, his OPS plus was way below average, but his OBP again decent for a catcher. And then we have Dom Nunez in the minors, who will probably be the backup catcher next year, who I just forgot about. Even though Elias Diaz wasn't performing the greatest. But so Dom Nunez would probably be the backup catcher next year, and he is pretty good offensively. So he'll be probably taking over that spot next year. Daniel Murphy, fantastic season from him. Of course, all of these BABIPs, I think this might be Coors Field inflating them a little bit, because most of them are pretty high, or at least higher than I would expect them to be for these players, or higher than their career average. But Daniel Murphy, fantastic offensive season from him. Bouncing back from kind of what was a bad offensive by recent Daniel Murphy standards, but pretty good, pretty valuable player for us. We're most likely going to bring him back next year. He's a $12 million team option, and he wants kind of that contract, but for more years at the moment. So we'll probably pick that up and then, see if we can move him next year. Jeter Downs brought him up at the very end of the season, September call-ups, just because, wanted to take a look at him in a Rockies uniform for the first time. He did get some time in not in the minor leagues, in the major leagues with the Red Sox. And he was not very good. And those times isn't even worse, and very few at bats with us. So he'll probably start in the minors next year, I would assume. But still cool to see him up there. Brendan Rodgers, he had a very good offensive season this year. I'm very pleased with that. Slightly below league average, a little high BABIP for him probably. But, he still has room to grow, and I think he'll become a better offense player. And we'll honestly see what we do with him. As long term, I like Jeter Downs ratings a lot better to be a starting second baseman. Maybe Rodgers ends up being third. Maybe Dalbec doesn't work out because, again, we have Tristan Cashes. He'll probably be coming up soon. So our infield is definitely kind of in flux. Or at least not in flux, but don't kind of know what we'll do with that yet. So guys are definitely going to kind of play their way into those spots. So we'll see kind of how that shakes out. Bobby Dalbec, he was fine in his first kind of major league experience. OPS a little under 800, OPS plus like 90, so slightly below league average offensively. Again, pretty decent defensively, honestly, at least at this point in his career. But not a bad intro to the major leagues for Dalbec. Ryan McMahon, kind of meh season from him, just about replacement level. Didn't get many chances to start. A lot of pinch hitter roles, so maybe that kind of thing is why he didn't perform that well. But he'll probably be in the same role next year, to be honest. So don't know if much will change there. Trevor Story, kind of a down Trevor Story year. OPS just over 800. OPS plus actually 97, so a little below league average. But still, he was great defensively at shortstop. Still, definitely a good player for us to have over a 4-win season. And, he's under contract for only another year. So he could also be possible trade chip, especially since our infield is pretty crowded. He could just, be, especially if we're not contending next year. He could be a guy who we look to move on from. And then, maybe Rodgers slides over to short. Jeter Downs slides over to short. It'd probably be Rodgers sliding over to short. To be honest, because he's just better. Yeah, he's just better defensively than Downs. So he would be the one to slide over to shortstop. Now, David Dahl, he, missed about a month, I think, in May, April-ish kind of time, but he was absolutely fantastic. It was definitely inflated by it and just nuts BABIP 426. I'm pretty sure that's the highest BABIP ever recorded. In the live ball era, at least I think. I know the record is somewhere around here, like 426-ish. Like, it's not, like, much higher than, like, 400. I like that BABIP for, like, a full-ish season. But, yeah, just insane BABIP. He was actually the most valuable player on our team, kind of by far, 5.8 WAR. But he was just nuts. I'm really kind of interested to see what happens with his career after this year. Because he definitely is going to be a guy that we have stick around. And he's been pretty good offensively, like, to this point in his career, and he's definitely like an offensive first corner infield guy, and I love to keep him around, and he definitely will stay around. But it's just very interesting to see that kind of insane BABIP. Ian Desmond, nothing much to say that he's just one of the I hate to kind of say overpaid, but because he did have a few decent years in the Nationals. Of course, when you're going through arbitration, you can't really get your due there. When you hit free agency, a decent amount of it, being paid for what you have done in the past. But he's one of our high salaried, bad contract-ish guys. At this point, he pretty much played poor defensive outfield. Not absolutely terrible with the bat. That's probably cores inflated a little bit, but again, we're just kind of waiting out the rest of his contract because we can't move him. And next year's the last year at only $8 million, so at least we won't be paying him as much. Next year, Mike Gerber was actually pretty solid again. He's kind of in the David Dahl category. He was above average offensively, not as good as Dahl, and his BABIP was also not on his highest end. But Mike Gerber got some decent appearances for us on the outfield, kind of, mostly after Blackman got traded away, but yeah, mostly in center field. Center field was definitely kind of a bad spot for us this year, so he hit well, at least when he's in center field. He can't play the field much, but decent season from him. He definitely won't repeat that kind of thing, but I guess this is a pretty good one-year wonder-ish thing for a guy who, he was a late 20s, just kind of replacement level minor league journeyman, so he'll have that at least, and 7 home runs to his name. Garrett Hampton, he's a main second baseman. He started off the season on second base for us until he got injured, and then he kind of flip-flopped, and actually couldn't find him for the longest time. I had to search, do a manual player search to find him, because I just couldn't find him when I thought I called him up to the major leagues. I didn't even notice that he had been playing in center field for us for a while. Apparently he can play a little center and left. I thought he was only an infielder. So he played center field for a decent amount for us, which I think he probably played more center than second. I know he did. He pretty much played exclusively center after he got called back up after his injury. Well, it wasn't good, but defensively center field. Offensively, kind of meh. Pretty much this is what you can expect from him. He's not a super high power guy, but he will have a higher-ish BABIP. So 362 I don't think is too crazy for him. Since he's a pretty fast, contact first outfielder. Zach Bornstein, he was ranking in AAA. We called him up to the majors, just because we traded Blackman. We had outfield spots open and a left-handed bat. I thought would be good, and he just wasn't good in the very few at-bats he got. So, a lot of these older-ish outfielders, no idea what I'm going to do with them. Probably just going to stick around, to be honest. I'm somewhere than Jonathan Dazzler. He actually had kind of quite the comeback. He started off the season as our everyday center fielder, and he was just awful, really, really awful. So we sent him down for a while. Then eventually, injuries and stuff happened. Poor outfield performance from the depth guys we called up. So we called him back up, and he just got hot immediately. And he's again one of those high contact, no discipline guys who just swings at everything. High BABIP because of his speed. He can play a fantastic right field. And that's especially needed in a place where, like Coors, where the outfield's just huge, so you just need guys who can cover all that ground. And yeah, he was pretty good for us, actually. Maybe not fantastic offensively, OPS plus, below league average, but still, we'll take that performance from a guy who, didn't really expect anything from. A lot of these guys, probably be cycled out eventually. And so, just kind of interesting to see the performance, at least immediately. So, pitching-wise, we're going to go good performance first, because I usually just start off with the bad, but, in Coors Field, you're not going to have fantastic pitching. We know that. I know that. Everyone knows that. But, we had a few relievers here who are okay-ish. Carlos Estevez, he was the only guy with a FIP under 4. A lot of these guys are power pitchers again. We'll probably, kind of experiment with extreme ground ball guys. Kind of cycle through different types of pitchers and see, what succeeds. Scott Oberg, he's one of those extreme ground ball guys. Not a fantastic pitcher in general, but he's a decent guy to have in your bullpen. German Marquez, he was pretty good for us, at least pretty decent. He's the best pitcher on our staff, and he pitched like it. High 5 ERA, but again, low FIP kind of thing. Definitely could use to get those strikeouts up, only 8.5 per 9. I think that's pretty low compared to the rest of his career. Then you have guys like Ryan Helsey, who's we acquired in the Blackman trade. He was pretty decent for his first season. Diaz, a lot of these kind of guys in the middle here, just kind of replacement-ish. Type relievers. Antonio Sensatella, he was pretty decent for us. Gudo, he's a guy we caught up from the minors, and he actually, his ERA is better than kind of that FIP. He has a pretty high strikeout to walk ratio, doesn't really walk anybody. So that, was probably why his ERA is low, and then his FIP was much higher, but he's a decent guy to have around. I'll probably keep in the rotation next year. Jeff Hoffman kind of cycled around. He was actually injured a lot this season. So yeah, you can see 87 innings pitched only, so he kind of cycled back between the starting and bullpen, depending on, rest and things like that. Ben Bowden, he was okay. John Gray, would like more from him. Looks like his days as a top prospect for the Rockies, kind of know what he is at this point. Just kind of back of the rotation innings eater kind of guy. And here we have the plethora of guys who are just bad. Yancy Almonte, Brian Shaw, Keller Freeman, who's continued to be awful. So it looks like he's also done pretty much after that one good season. But hopefully we can get a little more from him. Then Junior Fernandez, barely got some innings this year. Just, kind of wanted to see what he had. So far this year, of course, he has tons of room to grow. Not sure if I want to have, him in the bullpen next year, because, our bullpen, not very good. He's one of the more decently rated relievers we have, but I don't want to, just kind of throw him out there in the big league team when he's not ready. I mean, you know, of course, he is a very, very high ceiling. He could become something very good for us. I don't necessarily want to just throw him out there because, you know, we don't have anyone better. So there's a chance he starts in the minors next year, and, you know, maybe we see him next year depending on how he performs. But he should be, he'll be 24 next year. So we'll definitely keep a close eye on him because we don't want to not use him properly or something like that. He walked a lot of guys here. 9 walks per 9. And then it looks like he just needs to pretty much figure out his control a little bit, and once he gets a little bit of consistency with that, maybe he will grow into something a little better for us. But I mean, I'm super excited about him and Helsley. Hopefully they can turn into something for us. And I think honestly that's pretty much it. Went over the batting, went over the pitching, and then kind of next episode we'll get into how we usually do in the off season. Which could be 1 or 2 parts depending on kind of the moves we make, kind of what happens there. I assume it would probably be only 1 part for kind of an early, because we're pretty early in the series and probably won't, be making a lot of acquisitions. Definitely will be returning this kind of strategy that I've been employing with kind of buying low on veteran guys, especially if I can find any like veteran starters who have like a good ground ball tendency, because I mean those guys would probably perform pretty well in cores, especially maybe compared to the future, like other guys in the league. Another thing with extreme ground balls, of course, we're going to try to have pretty good defensive infielders and maybe, rely on our outfield to be pretty good bats. But again, all of that will kind of shake out as we kind of plan it to, or we'll see, what's available to us as we go on in this series, but it certainly will be fun to kind of see all that kind of things play out. So that's going to do it for this episode, and thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to sub, definitely been enjoying all the support that this new series has gotten, especially because I'm starting it way after the game came out. But, I guess baseball season's running and people are interested to see this kind of content. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next episode.